Aloha! Is Hawaii on your bucket list? Stay tuned to the end of the show. You could save a boatload. My guest today is Larry Jackson, co-owner of Cruise Holidays of Viera, located in Melbourne, Florida. Larry is an elite and master cruise counselor specializing in cruises and cruise tours. Together with his lovely wife and co-owner Lynda, they have been meeting the needs of their clients since 2003. Our topic today is all about Hawaii. Both Lynda and Larry are certified destination experts, and more than that, they've actually lived in Hawaii for a number of years, and each year they personally escort a Hawaii cruise tour in and around the islands. Hi, Larry. Welcome to RTE Travel Talk.
Hi, Ken. It's great to be with you.
Our topic today, Larry, is all about Hawaii, but just before we get to that, did I miss anything on that intro?
No, the only thing I would add is that our grandchildren live in Hawaii, and that means that we, before the COVID and everything, travel to Hawaii at least once a year and sometimes 2 or 3 times a year.
Oh, wow.
One of the things that really bugs me right off the bat about people who claim to be Hawaii experts is a lot of when you see these online experts, it's someone who made a trip to Hawaii once in their life, but they haven't been back in 20 years. So for us, it's important to go back, keep updated, and see what's going on in the island. So that we think that's a real value added for people when we're planning trips for them.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me. So let's talk about Hawaii. I think probably my number one question is, what to see and what to do when you get there. But just before we get to that, what's the state of the nation with travel in Hawaii right now? Do we know, or is it something? Is it something really? Should we be looking to travel to Hawaii tomorrow, or what's going on with Hawaii?
Yeah, Ken, that's a great question. It's been a real tough road for them out there. Being islands isolated the way they are very, very afraid of getting an outbreak on the islands. I mean, they can't go anywhere. And so they have probably been shut down and locked down more so than any other state in the United States. Currently, things are a little bit better. They are allowing, if you have been vaccinated, you can pretty much move around the islands. If you have not been vaccinated, it's very difficult. You have to have a COVID test every 72 hours.
Wow.
The only caveat I have right now is because they're just coming out of this, a lot of things are not back open again. I just got finished planning a tour for a couple that's going out in June. A lot of my favorite things to do are not either being offered at all, or they're not being offered every day of the week. And so it's, for instance, there's a luau at the Polynesian Cultural Center that I really like. It's completely sold out for the rest of the summer because they have very limited capacity and things like that. My bottom line is, I think if you're wanting to travel to Hawaii, I would look towards January or February to start doing that.
That's going to give things much more time to open up and get going again.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of issues. Of course, we got the employment issue. I don't know if they're able to get people, but it's just a lot of things. It's just there's no rental cars either. That which is a big part of what we like to do is we like to plan trips so that you do your own tour, and in fact, we even have software for you that will guide you around the islands. But so that's a real tough one right there. No rental cars.
So Hawaii, I did a little bit of research.
Great.
Compromises 137 islands in the state, which include the main islands of Hawaii. Now, you're the expert. You're going to have to correct me on my pronunciation here.
All right, here we go.
I'm gonna give it a shot.
We love to do this with mainlanders.
All right, so we got Hawaii, Maui, Kolahave, Molokai, Lanai, Kauai, and Niihau.
Okay, a few. In Hawaiian, we pronounce every single syllable, so it's Kaho'olawe, it's Lanai, it's Kauai, and Molokai. But you did very good.
Well, good. I'm good. So hopefully at some point they'll let me on the island.
Yeah. Oh, yes. By the way, U.S. citizens do not need passports to go to Hawaii. I get that question a lot. So, and you use U.S. dollars. So,
Larry, for a first-time visitor, what do you recommend for activities?
Well, Ken, for the first time visitor, we think that we highly recommend is to see four of the islands, and that would be Oahu, the major island where Honolulu is located. We think you should go to the Big Island, which is also known as Hawaii, because that's where the volcanoes are. We think you should go to Maui, and we think you should go to Kauai. Now, that being said, going between those islands is just like flying from Toronto to Alberta. I mean, it's just, even though it's a 20-minute flight, you've got to go through all the TSA, you've got to go through all the hassle, you got to check out of your hotel, you got to get a transfer to the airport, you got to turn your rental car. So what we recommend you do is to take a 7-day cruise around the islands. And there's a very unique situation in the islands. There is one ship called the Pride of America by Norwegian Cruise Lines that's allowed to go between the four islands on a 7-day cruise without having to go to an international destination. And that's very important. So you have this floating hotel that takes you from island to island. Each morning you get off on a different island. There's 2 overnights, but you get off on the island, you get right on your excursions, and you're off seeing Hawaii. So to us, that's the very best way to see the islands.
So with the Pride of America, and you're dropping in on these islands in each day, how long would you spend in port roughly?
What the itinerary? Now this is all pre-COVID, but we're assuming this is going to be coming back. What the way it goes is we recommend that you fly into the island of Oahu, Honolulu, on Thursday, and then tour. A lot of people. This is another thing that happens in Hawaii. A lot of people view Oahu. The state population is 1.2 million people, of which 1 million live on Oahu. So people view Oahu as crowded, noisy, Waikiki, and all that sort of thing. But it is a very beautiful island. So we recommend that you spend 2 or 3 days touring that island, because it is a very, very, and historically, it's a very important island, because that's where the kingdom was founded and the headquarters. That's Pearl Harbor's there, the Arizona Memorial. All of those are very important things that people want to see. So anyway, flying in on Thursday evening, spending Friday and then Saturday touring the island of Oahu, getting on the ship on Saturday evening and sailing away. It's a beautiful sail away out of Honolulu Harbor, Aloha Tower. And then the next morning, you open up the curtains to your balcony, and there's Maui. And boy, what a sight that is. Maui is called the Valley Isle. And when you open up that curtain to your balcony stateroom, and there's Maui sitting, it is really takes your breath away. So the ship spends Sunday and Sunday night on Maui. And what we do is we tour on Sunday. We go to a place called Haleakala. Now, by the way, if you take this cruise tour and you don't go with us escorted, I can recreate this for you. And so I can make this whole cruise tour happen without us being there. And we do these very private excursions to the different parts of the island. But anyway, we go to Haleakala, which is an extinct volcanic crater. We go to the 10,000-foot elevation, where we can look down on some spectacular sights if it's a clear day. Beautiful colors, and we can actually see the other islands from up there. We come down from Haleakala, and then that night we go to a very special luau in Lahaina. Lahaina is an old whaling town, and that's a great place. We take our visitors over there early and walk around, and then we go to the old Lahaina luau, and Lynda and I have been to every luau in Hawaii, and this is the very best luau. So that's the reason we do this luau.
And that's something. That's something you definitely has to be on your list if you're going to do Hawaii, is a luau, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But I want you to be able to do the right luau, because some of our luau's are very touristy. They're very hokey. This one is very, very. One of the things they don't do is get people from the mainland up on stage and embarrass them and doing the hula. So that's it's a great luau from that standpoint. The next day, we go to take what's known as the road to Hana. It's a 60-mile road with 300 hairpin turns. 70 bridges, one-way bridges, but some of the most beautiful rainforest and waterfalls that you'll see anywhere in Hawaii. And we think that's a real must, is to take the road to Hana. That evening on basically Monday, we leave Maui and we go to the Big Island. We're going to make 2 stops on the Big Island of Hawaii. The first one is in Hilo, and Hilo's on the south east corner of the island, and that's where the Volcanoes National Park is. And That is a very active volcano. It had a huge eruption 2 years ago. We were actually sitting in the Hilo Yacht Club when the eruption happened. We had a 6.9 earthquake, and it was really funny because we were watching people go back and forth and across the table from us. But the Hawaii volcanoes is a must. That's a full day excursion there. We get back on the ship and we cruise around to the other side of the big island of Hawaii. And there, if there's an active lava flow going, the captain slows down the ship about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and you can actually see the lava flowing down from the volcano into the ocean. So that's a really neat sight to see. Then we're on the other side of the island known as Kona, and that's the dry side of the island. And we take people, and our excursions go up to the other parts of the island. We go to places that nobody ever goes to on those islands, and that part of Hawaii is another one. We cruise out of Kona and then off to my favorite island, which is Kauai. Kauai is known as the Garden Island. There's 66 films were filmed there. Some you might have seen, such as Jurassic Park, South Pacific. All of those were filmed on Kauai, and that's one of the things we do. We take a tour of the film sites. When you get to Kauai, you dock at a place. I love this name, Nawiliwili Harbor. Isn't that a great name for Nawiliwili? And so that's our headquarters for the day. Something unique about Kauai, that's where the ship does their luau, and they take the ship takes holds 2,600 passengers, and about 2,000 of them go to that luau that night. Our luau only has about 200 people, so that's a big difference of the way we do things. Off to spend the night in Kauai. The next day we go up to Waimea Canyon and we arrange our tour. So we get up there around 7 o'clock in the morning, and we do that because we want to get there before all the tour buses get there. And so we get to see the whole Waimea Canyon, which is known as the Grand Canyon of the Pacific. And it has all the colors that you see in the Grand Canyon out in Arizona. We cruise out of Kauai. We leave. Now, this is a very, very special part of the cruise, and we position our staterooms on the port side of the ship because when we leave Kauai, we're going to go up the northeast coast, something called the Napali Coast. It is probably one of the most spectacular sights on Earth, and these are sheer cliffs that come down 5,000 feet down to the ocean, and the colors of the vegetation and the red soil underneath, it makes them for spectacular colors. But you have to see it at a certain time of day. And when the captain cruises up, we get up there about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's the perfect time, but only from the port side of the ship. When he turns around and comes back down, it's a little bit darker and you don't see the colors. So anyway, then the next morning we wake up at Honolulu and we're off to Pearl Harbor to see the Arizona Memorial. Very moving day to see all of that.
Right.
Then the flights in Hawaii arrive in the afternoon, and then they leave because they turn the airplanes. They leave early in the evening, so we have time to get everybody to the airport, and off they go. So that's kind of our nutshell type of a tour of Hawaii.
That really sounds like the way to do Hawaii. A couple of things you mentioned, the port side of the ship. Now that's not something that the average person going to Hawaii, if they're going to get on a cruise ship, would think about, and so it kind of lends the value of working with an experienced real travel expert such as yourself.
Yeah, and I just bring that up as an example, Kevin. There's a whole bunch of other things that we do that you're not going to be able to do on any other type of an excursion.
So you get up, like with these escorted tours that you guys are doing, it's a much more immersive and in-depth experience. So you're going to see more of the real Hawaii in a short period of time.
Exactly, Ken. And we think that Hawaii is unique from several different standpoints. So, number one, the language, as you pointed out, is unique. The other thing are the cultures. There are no predominant cultures in Hawaii. It's split almost evenly between what they call haoles, or white people from the mainland, Chinese, Japanese, and other islands. There's really no majority there. So all these cultures come together, and that creates some incredible food. And so that's one of the things we like to try to show. We take people to places where they're able to try the local food, all of this Asian fusion coming together. We think the history of Hawaii is very unique, and we try to do as much of the history. For example, one of the things we do, and very few tourists do this, is we go to the Iolani Palace for a private tour. And Iolani Palace is the only royal palace on U.S. soil. and it was built by King Kalakaua in 1893. It is a very moving experience, and we immerse ourselves in the history of the monarchy. Hawaii was a kingdom before it was a territory and then a state. So the Iolani Palace is something that's very, very special. When you go to the Iolani Palace, the last queen of Hawaii, which was overthrown by the United States government, was actually locked in her own palace in a room for a year and a half with all the windows shut. And you go in that room and they shut the windows, and that's quite an experience to see what she went through during that time frame. So that the history, and then finally the music of Hawaii is very special to us, and it's very unique. And so that's the other thing we try to, so we want to get you the language, the culture, the food, and the music and the history of Hawaii. And that's all of our tours are geared around all of those things.
Yeah. And the history would be fascinating.
It is very fascinating history. And we also have, to take a little page out of Talk's book, we have a reading list for you before we go. But people get a little bogged down with all the Hawaiian names, so they don't really get that far through their history books.
Well, Hawaii really sounds like paradise and probably should be on everybody's wander list. Is there anything else, Larry, that we should talk about when it comes to Hawaii?
We have one couple who's been on our cruise tour 3 times. It's the same cruise tour. And it's, the way you feel about Alaska, it is just such a unique place. And
Right.
it's one of those places just burns in your memory every time you think about it. And I think that's what Hawaii is. And I know it's a long flight and there's a lot of time zone changes and things like that. But I tell you, everybody we have ever taken, nobody's ever said, boy, I'm sorry we went. They just really fall in love. It's such a unique place. I can't think of any place else like it on earth. You have to remember something. These people did not even see iron. And they'd never seen a piece of iron until the 1780s when Captain Cook arrived. I mean, think about that. And they're only 200 years into basically civilization as we know it. So it's very unique from that standpoint.
Well, what you say about if people that have gone to Hawaii have never, once you've been there, you mostly always want to go back if you can at all. It actually puts me in mind of my brother-in-law. Now, this gentleman here, you couldn't get him out of this province to save his soul. About 5 or 6 years ago, his son and his wife, they're airline pilots for Air Canada.
Oh, wow.
They bought a condo in Hawaii. And they convinced them to go once, and now if there's any chance of getting away to Hawaii, he's on the first plane out of here. They just love Hawaii. Just totally love it.
And Ken, that brings up another point I wanted to make, that I mean, what I just told you on the cruise tour and things like that's the ideal. But I tell people I can make almost anything legal happen for you in Hawaii, whatever you desire. For instance, if you play golf, there are 68 courses in Hawaii. I played 66 of them. So I'm pretty well versed on if you want to just do a golf. If you just want to go to find the very best beach, or you want to go someplace, there's an island called Lanai that only has 3,000 residents on it. And that's if you just want to go get away from civilization, we can make that happen. So we tell people, whatever you want to do in Hawaii, we can make it happen for you. So that's one of our basic, unique specialties also.
So basically a custom dream bucket list vacation you guys can do.
One of the things I did when I lived there was I worked for a large brokerage firm, and we did weekends on different islands for our brokers, and I was in charge of that. So I know all the hotels on all the other islands too, because I've stayed in almost all the other island hotels. So and there are things that you can do on the other islands at night that we can't do on the ship, and we know about those, and we can make those happen too. So
fantastic. Well, Larry, this has been great.
Thanks, Gary.
If folks want to learn more, where can they contact you?
Well, the best way is to go to our website, which is just cruisin', no G, Viera.com. Viera is the little town we live in. So just cruisingviera.com. There's places on there you can see our cruise tour. You can there's a way to contact us. And what I like to tell people is, if you want to go to Hawaii, send me an email. Tell me when you want to go and tell me what you want to do, and let me take care of the rest. And we can just fly with it. Ken, one of the other things that we do is, I think, a little bit unique in Hawaii is that we will charge a booking fee But what that allows us to do is drastically lower the cost of hotels and tours and things like that. Because what we've noticed is a lot of the vendors will build in, they'll pay a travel agent a commission, but they'll build in a huge amount for that commission and only pay a little bit of it to the travel agent. So by being able to book without commissions, we save people a ton of, sometimes $2,000 and $3,000, depending on how many hotels are involved. So it's a big advantage of paying a flat fee to us and then letting us book things without commissions. And we found it really saves the traveler a lot of money.
Once again, the value of a real travel expert in your corner when you're doing this sort of thing.
And because we love Hawaii so much, we want to make sure you love Hawaii when you come back. And that is a huge motivation for us, because we really want you to come back and say, hey, I fell in love with the place, or hey, I'm selling everything, I'm moving. And
all right, Larry, well, this has been great. Look forward to seeing that next cruise tour to Hawaii and talking to you again. Take care.
Okay. Thanks, Ken.
Bye.
Aloha.